Ochelli effect. The alternative's alternative. Chuck Ochelli.
10th day of November 2017, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar. And this indeed is the Ochelli Effect, broadcast live from the facilities of Ochelli.com. However, you are equally welcome to the show if you have wandered into us somehow via your fondle slab of choice, your applicable application, further on down the stream through the various pod-catching facilities out there. We do appreciate you, and no matter who you are and where you are and what time it is, we do hope you're well. Anyway, it is a Friar's Day night, as they originally called it, I believe. Friday in most places, although it may be another day depending on where you are on that thing we call the planet Earth. Don't want to get into the discussion about whether it's flat or round today. Not at all, but we are going to go into some interesting areas. Not going to be a news-centric sort of situation. I really had other things in mind, and I was going to bring on Jordan Maxwell. That is not going to be possible. So I thought to myself, who is it that I could bring on a Friday to end the week that would give me an unusual discussion that would give you, the people listening, something else to consider? I love Jordan. Everybody knows that, and I'm more than happy to have him on, regardless of what it is he's talking about and what it is he may or may not be repeating. The bottom line is I do appreciate him, and he will be back on the show if his health and time permits. But tonight we're talking to Tony Sayers. Now, Tony is in an interesting category of individuals, and I certainly am looking forward to this because here's the thing. I'm rather skeptical of a lot of the people that are often described to me in the way that Tony Sayers is described to me. I am not pleased, in fact, with most of the assertions that are made by individuals who seem to be out there in the business of advancing people's knowledge in a spiritual sense, because most of them have absolutely no clue what they're talking about. As far as I'm concerned. And meanwhile, it's not because I'm a Christian. I'm married to some sort of, generic faith, in quotes, out there related to a convention of religious organizations in a standard sense. None of that. I've told you guys several times I'm a pagan, and I refuse to describe exactly what that means, with good reason. But there are certain elements to what Tony does talk about that I do know are legitimate. And I really left it open so that I was not well studied on his material tonight, because I want to learn right along with you guys. I realize that some people that are listening probably know his work better than me, but I think the exploration is certainly valid, especially considering it is not the usual suspects who brought the name Tony Sayers to me. Individuals that I respect, individuals that I find to not be easily taken in by intellectual charlatans, which there are many of, and not by spiritual charlatans who are really out there just to suck money and, energy for their own egos, and that's about it. Now, all of those descriptions aside, Tony might be getting offended thinking I'm describing him in this way, but I'm not. I'm actually saying, let's explore this and see that he is not, because I've been told he is not, and therefore is somebody that I think we need to listen to. Anyway, all of that, Tony, I bet you never had an introduction like that before. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm really good. No, that was quite the introduction, Chuck. Thanks for that. And it is a very, I guess, interesting viewpoint that I'm taking on this. And yeah, I guess it's I guess your audience all have open minds, so that's the perfect audience for it. And I look forward to the conversation and where it leads, and hopefully we can get a bit more understanding around this subject.
Well, absolutely. Before we go any further, let's, for the first time during the show, tell people where they should go to examine your work before we even get into your work. As a point of reference, I'll ask you again to tell people, but what would be a good starting point if nobody's ever heard your name before and they need to begin exploring your work? What would be the place to go?
Okay, so I have my own website, which is www.transcendingtimes.org. There I've got other podcasts, talks that I've done around the UK, vlogs, blogs, everything's on there. I've got my own YouTube channel as well, and I'm on Facebook. But really, it's my website where, if people want a quick delve into what I'm talking about, then they can find everything on that website.
Right, and I've actually bumped into some of your stuff on YouTube, a couple of looked like public presentations to me in front of small audiences, and taking a look at some of the things you had to say. So I'm not completely unstudied here. It's just a matter of I want to remain as open-minded as possible. Although I got to tell you that sometimes I object to the concept of open-minded. It doesn't mean that I'm willing to listen to anything. It simply means that I'm not allowing my own preconceived notions to interfere with the objective observation that I'm going to put upon whatever it is that you're going to present. Now, there's a good starting point. Once again, what is your website?
Transcendingtimes.org.
transcendingtimes.org, and all of that is one word and then .org. Okay. Just want to make sure we got that nice and clear for everybody. Let me begin with a question that's way out of order. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because I think this will be an excellent starting point. It is one of my bones of contention with a lot of people that begin to explore the type of information that you do take great care to lay out to people. The concept, it's very convoluted, but I relate it to the concepts that Native Americans had instructed me about. And this was about the literal structure of the body and these vortex-like areas, which are the chakras, right? Yeah. Now, some people have a cursory understanding of that, and they've run with it in a very superficial sense, and they've now applied it to something that they want to sell you. They apply it to, I have, some sort of elixir here, and in some cases, they do give you something that has a natural purpose and a quality to it that could be useful for someone. But generally speaking, their misunderstanding of all of that concept in general leads them to believe, I'm going to sell you an oil that's going to take care of your chakras and that's going to correct everything for you. And I really find that kind of abhorrent because, again, there is a legitimate concept behind this that has been hijacked by people in the, and I hate to even use this term, but got no choice, the New Age movement, which for the most part is, intellectual masturbation for the sake of the egocentric ejaculation. I don't curse on my show, but I use some salacious terms. Okay. That's the truth, though, is in a lot of cases, it's these people feeding their egos with rather terrible information for the sake of being a guru, for instance, and they have no concept of what they're actually talking about. I recognize that you actually do. So for somebody that has no concept of this, how is it that you would introduce the concept of chakras and their significance and so on to somebody who is not initiated into this in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I think you're absolutely right about the New Age or New Cage movement, as I like to refer it to. It attracts this kind of, not all people, of course, but spiritual ego. Like you say, people, it's almost like a competition of how spiritual you are. And it also attracts there's a lot of people in this world with a lot of issues, a lot of problems that they've grown up with. And the New Age is perfect for someone who wants to kind of paper over those cracks. It's all kind of rainbows and unicorns, and we know a lot of the deceptions that, I'm certainly not the first person to talk about things along the lines of, never get angry about anything, just accept everything, don't go out in the world and make any positive changes. You just focus on yourself. This is all perfect for a controlling force. And, you mentioned earlier about being open-minded, and you're absolutely right. It's open-mindedness with discernment, and I think that's important to put across. We have to approach these things with an open mind, but also be very guarded and discerning as to what is being fed to us, because these controllers, they've got, as you know, they've got their fingers in all the pies, and all this stuff has been put out, all the books that are out there, well, the majority, the books, all these guided meditations, and, a lot of this comes from them. And the chakras is just an extension of that. And I think it's good if I tell you the story as to how I actually came across this information, because I've always been up until about a year ago very on board with chakras. I had no reason really. I've always questioned New Age, but I practiced Reiki and all that kind of stuff, and I felt the benefits of quote unquote balancing my chakras. And what happened to me last year was I put a video out aimed at the military, basically saying, you're not heroes, you're going to wars to fight for oil and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, long story short, this video went viral. And I wasn't quite expecting that. And of course, it then got into military circles. And you can imagine how that went down. And I was getting death threats sent to me, not just one, several pictures of snipers. And when someone does that, when someone has that intention, like, I hate you, or I want you to die, or that's an actual psychic energetic attack that sticks on your energy field. So what was happening, and I didn't really realize this at the time, I was getting bombarded with all this psychic attack. And it got to the point where I felt like I was walking around in a soup. I felt so drained. I felt, my memory was bad. And I knew it had something to do with this video going out, but I couldn't really connect the dots. And I was struggling, so I was trying all these different things, detoxing, different meditations. I went to see one quote-unquote energy healer who said that they remove entities, and I ended up feeling worse because a lot of these healers, they don't realize it, but they're actually channeling false white light beings and opening people up to even worse stuff. So I tried all that, and I was pretty desperate. And then one day I got a message from a lady called Abigail Patman. And she basically said, look, I'm coming across this information, and I think if there's anyone that can do with it, it's you right now. And I said, well, what is it? She said, well, basically it's the chakras are not what we think they are. They're basically artificial plugs that entities lock in to feed on our negative emotions, thoughts and emotions, and basically drain us like batteries. And I thought about it, and I thought the first thing that popped in my head was the scene out of The Matrix, where literally all those people are podded up and being drained. And for some reason, it just really resonated with me. And she actually goes through the process of removing these artificial chakras, because we still have three. I want to make this clear to your listeners and to you. We still have three natural vortexes, which are our Dantian points. So there's one around the third eye, there's one around the heart, and there's one around what is known as the solar plexus. And these are our natural vortexes where source energy flows through. So we still do kind of have chakras. Mm-hmm. But the seven that propagated in the New Age movement are these artificial plugs where, the likes of David Icke have spoken in the past of entities just out of our visible sight feeding on our emotions. But what he doesn't say is how they're doing it. Well, for me, this is the other part. This is the how. And long story short, I went through the process of having these removed. And I tell you, this cloud lifted overnight. This suit that I was in, it literally lifted overnight. And I was like, wow, that is powerful. And then I thought, well, if this is the case, then this is huge. Because there are millions, if not billions of people walking around on this planet thinking the chakras are these fantastic. And when you think about it, they make them look so beautiful, with these different rainbow colors, spinning lotus flowers. And the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what, that is so typical of what they would do. They would make the most evil thing look the most beautiful. And that was how I came across it. It was the only thing at the time that seemed to work for me. And I've continued to feel better, and I've worked on other people that have also felt the same. Because you pull the plug, this artificial plug, then these entities, they can't get into you anymore. And
let me interrupt you for a moment, because there's something I need to interject here. There are individuals who claim to be, light workers of sorts, that are, spiritual healers of sorts out there, who use this system, the system of seven altogether, and all this, and tie it to the Kundalini experience and all these things. Okay. But what's fascinating to me is that this is the hijacking of, again, Native American practices, and also practices of witchcraft, which I learned much earlier on in my life, that really focus on the legitimate connection of three. There's always the power of three that is involved in most natural structures. This is one of those principles in pagan witchcraft, which by the way has also been hijacked nicely by the New Age movement into the pseudo-Wiccan movement, which is the toying around with the concepts of witchcraft, but really not understanding the natural precepts that are involved with it, so on and so forth. I have always been amazed by the fact that this is a construct created by the mind and a shared delusion, it appears to me, among people that are not necessarily intending to do any harm, but really believe that this is what they're able to see. They are missing the keys here. Okay, they're literally saying, I found the door, and they're forgetting that there may be keys. And the keys are these 3 points. You're absolutely correct. And I don't come at this from your direction, mind you. This is just what I was taught a long time ago, and has always made sense. Okay. And it is effective. Now, I find it interesting that you describe the seven as artificial, because I don't know if I would categorize them as artificial, but they are constructed. They're not part of the standard design that we are born with, effectively. We're born with those 3 access points, let's call them. But the 7 idea are sort of generated in a shared, psychosocial experience. And a lot of things that are not natural are created through these concepts, through the spreading of these things. And yes, indeed, if you don't believe that those who wish to limit your ability to understand or navigate yourselves through the world are involved in doing precisely this, taking knowledge which could be beneficial and convoluting it to a point so that, in truth, you, no matter what your intent is, have no way to properly access it. This is exactly how things are done. Okay. I'm not stating that I know the whole structure of it. I'm stating that repeatedly, whether it's your historical reality, your cultural existence, the alleged events or state of the world around you, the very same tactics are put into place to make sure that you, the individual, are kept from the reality at all times. And by that mechanism in and of itself, since you do not know the reality, you can never engage in it. So really, you don't have any say in what's actually happening. So I think that this is extremely valid, and I am struck by the idea that you're actually talking about the natural structure versus whatever it is you want to call it, whether it's fabricated, manufactured, artificial. I don't know what the precise correct word is, but it's not what came along with you from the factory. Okay, it just isn't. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know where a lot of this is going on is the fourth dimension, which is it. I mean, we're obviously 3D. 4D is just outside of a visible sight, and these things are put on to us on the etheric. So it's not like, when I say artificial, it's not like a physical thing. It's like an etheric plug. And yeah, I mean, when you think about it as well, source energy just flows. You shouldn't have to. I mean, think about, why do you have to keep balancing source energy? Source energy just is. So what they've done with these 7 artificial chakras is they've decompartmentalized source energy. So you can feel good if you spend half an hour balancing your heart chakra, but then 2 days later you need to balance it again. And the thing is, when you pull the plug, when you remove these, you feel balanced a lot more of the time. I mean, I'm not going to bullshit people and say that you never have stress and you never have problems or issues or things don't get difficult. No, not at all. But the whole idea of balancing chakras just goes out the window, because you feel a lot more calm and balanced all of the time. So that's been a main difference. And also what's happening is, where they're locking in, they're looping negative thoughts and emotions back into people. So we have like a circular effect, where the person, where they've locked into people, and people have different amounts attached to them, and they also have different levels of entity attachment as well. So there's basically, if you are someone who's been through major trauma in your life, say you've been in a car crash or you've suffered abuse, something like that, then you can have what we refer to as like a level 2 takeover. This is a particularly nasty attachment whereby they loop really severe anxiety and negative thoughts in, sometimes suicidal thoughts. And people who've had this removed, their mindset has changed literally overnight, after feeling down and beaten up for years and years and years, not realizing what it is. So we have, and also it's important to point out that these attachments, they get in during sex, because sex is a huge, powerful energy exchange. So we become corded with partners, and they can jump in and attach themselves. So you might be, it's not fear mongering. It's just, this is what we're discovering, is that, you know, they can get in on all these different ways while you're literally plugged in. Also, what we're finding as well is, this is another huge area which again isn't popular. All this stuff about go and take ayahuasca, go and do DMT, get out of your consciousness. You know, I've been into that. I've been down that rabbit hole. It interested me really, really greatly for a few years, and I tried different things. And now what I'm understanding, and people that we've worked on, they've gone off and taken ayahuasca at the weekend, or DMT. They've got out of their heads. They've got out of their center, and these things have got in. They've got in on them on these experiences, attached themselves. So I'm even thinking now that, you know, is all this take DMT, ayahuasca, is this another part of this new age movement, this whole, you know, it's almost like a pilgrimage now, isn't it, to go and take ayahuasca in a Peruvian rainforest? And I see it everywhere, and I'm just thinking now, this is just more bullshit to get people out of their consciousness so they can get more attachment so they can be controlled on an etheric astral level.
Well, right. And I associate this directly with, the use of the CIA putting out the LSD here in the States, certainly making it available to people that were interested in spiritual and social exploration. I think that was exactly done purposely so that you could generate exactly these sorts of problems. Now, there was another thing that you discussed there, which I don't want to let go of or get past quickly because we need to break this down. The idea that traumatic experience is, look, it's very new agey. It's very touchy feely. Everybody's got trauma. I understand that. The truth of it is that I believe that it's gotten more prolific over recent time than it was even in the past. But I've got to say that when I examine and I have personal discussions with just about anybody, I can usually find a point of trauma, a point of pain, a point of real violation of their well-being on some level that occurred, and almost everybody seems to have this. I wonder sometimes if it is part of the natural human experience or it has been promoted as a way to make people more vulnerable. I certainly don't want to, get too lost on it, but I want to say that trauma, and for those that, would think that everything that you're saying is, just more new agey nonsense. Okay. One must understand that it goes far beyond, first of all, psychology, because they'll often point to clinical psychology. Psychology is not even an exact science, and also let's remember the root word for that, psyche, which, hey, go to the Greeks, they'll tell you what that was. The fact is that, the psychology does have a role in it. There is a biochemical reaction that occurs based on certain traumatic events, which do reshape the way the brain functions. Okay, so you can see the physical evidence of this interplay without too much of an issue, and that's a relatively new concept, by the way. In even the most ardently scientific, atheistic, and dispossessed of mystical aspects. Schools of thought that you can possibly encounter, the idea that there is a real world effect to traumatic experience, depending on what age you suffered it, depending on the level of it, let's just say the depravity of the violation, the sudden impact, the mourning of loss for things that occurred because of it. All of these things they can factor in, but they do not seem to factor in the rest of it. And I think although the answers are not readily available for everybody just yet, I think that the exploration is a worthy thing to do because, bottom line, many of us are quite a bit driven in a positive sometimes, but most often in a negative sense by the traumas which we still have internalized. As a recurring memory, we're triggered to recall them. We're triggered to be guided by them, principally in a lot of our, alleged moral constructs. So let's speak about trauma a little bit here, because you kind of went past that real quick, and then get into the rest of it after. But I leave it open to you at that point.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when I say trauma, I mean, of course, everyone's had trauma, whether it be, marriage breakups or illnesses or things like this. But what I'm talking about with these particularly severe attachments is severe trauma, because what happens is when you are really knocked out of your center, that is when the real nasty attachments can get in. So we're talking like I say, like some kind of physical or sexual abuse, maybe a car crash. So there's different levels of trauma, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So if you've had a really, really severe trauma, then it's possible that a particularly nastier attachment can get in. Not always, but like I say, we all have these, what I call feeders on us to different levels, but it seems to be the ones that have suffered the worst. And also people that have taken a lot of drugs or alcoholics, these are the people that have the particularly nasty attachments. Because, I mean, again, if you're a drug addict or an alcoholic, you are out of your center a lot of the time. I mean, you look at alcohol. I mean, it's telling you everything. It's spirits. They call it spirits. I mean, that's called spirits for a reason, because alcohol, when you're drunk, opens you up. It opens you up to entity attachments. Even the word alcohol, it's the name of the demonic entity Al Ghul. So all these kind of behaviors, I feel, as I go on with this work, are actually propagated, because they know full well that if you're going to get blind drunk all the time or take all these drugs or narcotics, and they know that, you know, these things are going to get in on you. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's so heavily marketed these days.
Well, quick question here, though. Just a quick one. Just a quick question. You would agree, though, that alcohol and drug use, especially habitual, are both cause and effect when it comes to this, because it seems to me as though they're the result in a lot of cases of people trying to deal with things that have already gone on, but also they cause their own disturbance as well. So I think they're both cause and effect. You'd agree with that, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, people turn to these things to try and escape the trauma that they've been through, and it is very sad. And, you know, I sound like a bit of a killjoy because, you know, I'm telling people that the chakras are bad, and they, you know, everyone loves their chakras, you know, those beautiful colors, and, you know, everyone likes a drink now and then. But I'm just telling you what, you know, the reality of what my opinion is on it anyway. And, get out your head. When you get out your head, you're opening yourself up. That's my view on it.
No, this is really an intelligent way to look at it. I never complain or advise anybody to do or not do any of that. You know, and I've had my own particular experiences. I mean, at one point I was hooked on prescription drugs for a bit, and really, there you go again. It was one of those things where it became habitual because of the physical realities and a trauma which had been suffered earlier. So your thesis stands up as far as I'm concerned. However, I would also state that it's interesting because not only do people need to be dispossessed of this idea that you know, when you totally removed yourself from all of your center, you know, it does leave a void. You know, there's something else has to go there. I mean, it almost encourages the entrance of, you know, something else into it. Of course, this is a weird concept for some people, and I would say that it's fairly sensible. I mean, again, I don't judge anybody. It's not a matter of judgment. It's a matter of let's be practical here and remember that, you know, while your mind is not working, you are mindless, okay? And you know what I'm saying? It's just that simple in a way. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if a year ago this info wouldn't have been on my radar. I mean, it's only because I had personal experience of the positive effects of it that made me delve deeper into it. But what I'm realizing now, everyone's talking about surface level stuff. Well, not everyone. I mean, you know, we've got all the political stuff going on, and you know, this is really what I'm finding really just a smokescreen. The real hard stuff is going on a metaphysical level, and it's not just by entities. We're talking AI as well. I mean, this is the other aspect of my work is artificial intelligence and how that is infiltrating people's body through nanotech in the chemtrails. In pharmaceutical drugs, in washing powder, washing up liquid, these microscopic robots which monitor our level of consciousness, and once we reach certain levels of consciousness, they can pulsate and put the body systems out. They have GPS in them, so they can always know where we are. And they're releasing toxins in the body, and you'll know yourself about Morgellons. So we are on we're under attack on what I would say 3 levels. There's the physical, third dimensional level with what's going on with war and politicians and that kind of stuff. Then we have the entity attachments and that kind of thing that we've been talking about through the 4th dimension. And then we have artificial intelligence that also want a piece of us with transhumanism. And they're doing all kinds of things as well, like, with this nano is, it's cloning people, it's transgender, it can attach to genitals, putting people off of sex.
Well, let me add something else here real quick, though. You're also, I'm sure, in line with the idea that the genetically modified organisms in food are part of this equation as well, because after all, the old saying, you are what you eat. If the building blocks of life that you're adding into yourself are things that have been genetically modified, it seems as though this would be part of the equation. And meanwhile, these are not separate issues. I think these are all part of one issue. It is merely like bringing several types of weapons to a battle, and they've chosen to use the biochemical. They've chosen to use the psychospiritual. They've chosen to use the intellectual. They've chosen to use the, electromagnetic areas of the world. Anything that can be used as a weapon against the organism as a whole, I think, is being used against all of us. What's fascinating to me is that although there seems to be a singular agenda here to attack the human's natural, or the man or woman's natural state of being on all levels, one could also say that there is, they have to keep in mind that everyone is a little bit different. So not everyone is going to show the same symptoms. Not everyone is going to take everything the same way. For instance, real quick, when you said, well, I was getting death threats and I was feeling bad about it, I've got to tell you something. I've received death threats, and quite honestly, I thrive on them. I find them to be rather fascinating and challenging. As a matter of fact, I will turn around. I've been known to privately turn around and just say, here's my address, here's what time of day. You can come knock on my door. And if you really feel as though you have the strength to take my life, I welcome you to it. And I find that exhilarating, actually. Interesting. It does not weigh me down at all. Matter of fact, all it does is give me a little bit of an attitude problem and make me push at whatever it is that I just angered that person with a little more. I'm sorry, Tony. I throw all of this at you because I want to make sure that we cover the full landscape, and I promise you I'm going to keep my mouth much more shut in the second hour, but I want to throw these things in and see where you go with them. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. No, I mean, when that happened, it's more of a psychic, energetic attack that you don't have a choice in. I mean, when I was getting those, I'm of a similar viewpoint. It's not very nice, but it kind of drives you on, and you get that little chip on your shoulder and think, well, F you, just try it and that kind of thing. But what I'm saying is on an energetic level, when someone says, I hate you, I want to kill you, I want you to die, that is a psychic attack that energetic, what's the word I'm looking for? Intent sticks on your energy field, and when you've got hundreds of those all at the same time, that's when you start to feel, even if you're not scared inside, but you feel the weighing down of those attacks. So it's more of an energetic thing rather than a physical, being worried for my life kind of thing. I think anyone that talks truth, and they make that decision early on that they'll go whole hog for truth. So I'm with you on that. I just wanted to clarify the difference in what I'm talking about there.
Okay, appreciate that. But anyway, I know I interrupted you a bunch, and I want to let you go on a bit here because I'm finding this really interesting. Your thought process is different from what I'm accustomed to and what I often run into and get, again, admittedly disgusted with, because people that touch upon these subjects, I really do believe are doing more harm than good. Because even though their intent may even be good, and it may not all be about their egos. I mean, sometimes it clearly is. But on occasion, I think even the most benevolent-minded individual is really, truly misleading people because of their lack of an ability to step back and not and not use their own discernment about some of these things. I don't get it, but. Anyway, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the people that I generally observe having these discussions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. I use that word so much, discernment. And even in the truth movement, you see it all the time. Like everyone's still looking for a leader, whether that's a politician, whether it's a new age guru. They just want to keep giving their power away, and this is how these entities do it. It's all via consent or tacit consent. I mean, what they've done, what we're finding is they've actually split the fourth dimension up into subdivisions, which hold all of our consent data, which, in their opinion at least, allows them to siphon our energy. So we really, and you're absolutely right, we have to fall in love with that word discernment. And the problem is that people, they're not thinking, they're thinking with their emotions. This is the big problem, because people want to feel good, and I understand that. But, and especially with the New Age movement, all of that stuff makes you feel good. But is it beneficial? Is going to an energy healer and opening yourself up when that energy healer's open? Because what's happening, Chuck, is that, and I'm not saying all of them, but if you're working with an energy healer, their intent's not pure, or perhaps they've had a bit of a past and they've not cleaned themselves up, and if they're plugged in, then they also have entities working through them, which can come through them on person they're working on. They can also feel like they're channeling angelic beings. These things have been deceiving humanity for years, for eons. They are master deceivers. They're still deceiving us today, and they're doing it through, as you say, the lack of discernment, because human beings are in victim consciousness. They want a savior. And even the people that are, I think there's different, I don't like the word awake, but, there's different layers to understanding, if you like. And I think there's many people that are understanding of the political corruption, maybe even the spiritual corruption, but they've not realized their own sovereignty. What we are here to learn, as far as I can tell, is that we are sovereign beings. Nobody has the right to rule over us or nobody has the right to tell us what to do. Nobody can take from us without our consent. And what we keep doing is the opposite. We keep giving our power away. These people, on a 3D level, we see these people are deceiving us. The politicians, we know they're all actors. Well, as above, so below. They're also deceiving us in the fourth dimension. And we really need to look at this whole conspiracy on a much wider level, rather than just on a political front. We need to realize that we are sharing this reality with a multitude of other beings, other entities, if you like. I mean, David Icke describes it perfectly as, we're almost blind as to what we can see. I think it's 0.5% of the visible spectrum out there. So there's all this other stuff going on. And we really, as far as I can see, we really need to be looking at the whole thing rather than just the 3D physical aspects of it, because the 4D is really, I think, where a lot of this is taking place.
Right. At this point,
yeah.
I'd like to enter a couple of questions that have come in before we get them too backed up. Because people text me questions and enter them into the chat room, which, by the way, I encourage you to do if you're on my Skype list or if you go to the live chat room at Ochelli.com. I am more than happy to enter your questions. I would appreciate it if you put a large Q in front of your statement, because after all, remember, I am blind. Tony is helping me out, of course, in the chat room, but with my very little vision, it is helpful when there is a large Q in front of the question. So, first things first, and I'll give you all three of these questions, and you can deal with them any way you want. That I've gathered up here. One is the idea of consent. This seems to be a recurring theme in all religious, political, conspiracy, and literary worlds. If you do not consent, much like letting a vampire into your house, you have to invite them in. It seems as though this is just one of those universal truths. Does the guest think that this is true? Okay, that's question one. Question two is, let's see, would the guest advise that we don't attempt astral travel? Okay, question three, how do you pull the plugs out? And the last two came from Mydrin. The first one came from Kevin. And I have now asked your questions, guys, and I'll let Tony field them as he likes.
Yeah, sure. So the first question in regards to consent data, basically there is a universal law. Some people know it as karma. Some people know it as natural law. They can't just do things to us they are in some aspects, but if they were to just do all this, then there is repercussions for them. And by getting our consent, even if it's very lukewarm consent, they feel at least that they abstain from suffering some of karmic law. So by getting us to agree with it, then in their opinion, they feel like they might be getting away with it. So, for example, you could go and buy a GMO chocolate bar, and it's got all the chemicals of everything that's in this chocolate bar. And if you looked all those chemicals up, you'd probably see that they were all pretty poisonous. So they list them on the chocolate bar. So they're telling you what's in the chocolate bar. But most people will just buy the chocolate bar anyway and not research what's in it. So who's at fault there? Is that them for putting the poisons in the chocolate bar, or is that us just buying it without discerning, without researching? Again, just giving our power away, just trusting the food companies that they'll look after us. They wouldn't put anything bad in our food. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of point that I'm getting at here with consent data. They feel that they somehow hurdle universal law. And they're a little bit delusional because, they're going to have to face consequences at some point. But in their warped view, they kind of feel like they're getting away with it a little bit. Does that answer the question?
Well, I believe it does. Also, this falls right in line, again, with the pagan principle that is, you are not even permitted to present someone with anything dangerous without them specifically requesting and knowing that what they are doing is dangerous. Even if you're teaching someone about spirituality, you're not permitted to do so without their explicit and full consent, which is yet, not just saying, okay, I agree to accept it, but also you're supposed to tell them kind of what it means, that this could be this way, so on and so forth. And I mean, that was one of the processes I had to go through. You wish to be initiated? Well, first you're going to have to tell me that. And second, I'm going to lay out for you how it is this may go wrong for you if you don't do things properly, and if you're not very careful, you could have a lot of problems. And that was all laid out to me over the course of several days before anybody would teach me anything. Again, personal experience I entered there, but it's just one of those universal laws that does exist that you have to inform someone. I think you answered the question quite well. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's like, if you go to apply for a credit card or anything, and there's that button, isn't there? Submit. I mean, what does the word submit actually mean? Well, it just means giving your power away, doesn't it? So it's all, the language they use is very clever, and again, it just goes back to what you said. If we're not discerning things, then people, things, entities that will take advantage of. So yeah. In regards to the question in terms of astral,
well, hang on just a second. Hang on just a second, Tony. Hang on just a second, Tony, because your Skype is breaking up a little bit here. Can you hear me? Your Skype is breaking up just a little bit, so just mute for a second. And probably it'll fix itself. The question that you're trying to answer now.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, vaguely. You were breaking up there for a moment. But the next question that you were starting to answer was about astral projection. So please continue.
Yeah. So basically, again, I'm moving towards the opinion of getting out of this, taking this DMT, ayahuasca, going astral traveling. What we have to realize is the fourth dimension is swarming with these deceivers. And when we go out and we travel in the astral, we are opening ourselves up to what is out there. Now, I'm not saying that everything out there is bad, but there's a lot of stuff that's not good there. And if you've looked at, I don't know if you've looked at the work of Cameron Day at all, but what he talks about ties in very nicely with what I'm talking about. But he actually advises that at night time to set the intention to stay within your subconscious, because he also is of the opinion that it's far safer to stay within your subconscious rather than to go out into the astral and potentially open yourselves up. And again, you look at the New Age movement. It's go out, go and astral travel, lucid dream, and all this kind of stuff. And I just question how safe that actually is. I mean, I would never tell anyone what to do, but personally, based on my understanding now, I mean, I've never been able to astral travel anyway, but I certainly won't be trying it anytime soon, is where I'm at with it.
Well, right. And even over the years when people have asked me a question like that, I've always told them that I would certainly limit what it is you attempt to do for a very long time before you attempt to venture into some of these more fantastic areas that certain people describe as having experienced, because I don't believe that they or you are fully aware of the ramifications and the possibilities. And at all times, I think you should use caution when doing things like that. So I agree with the cautionary idea. I would never tell anybody what to do, but if you want to know my opinion, I'm pretty much in line with you on this. Now, we're almost out of time in this hour, and we do have actually two more questions, the one that we didn't get to and one more, which I'm going to just tell you now. Let's see. Is it possible to put up an etheric no trespassing sign? Which I have opinions on, but I certainly want to get yours in the next hour. And also the other question, which was already asked, but I will just voice it one more time. How do you pull the plugs out? Was exactly how it was worded. And I guess that refers to you talking about, pulling the plugs out on entities that have a way into you via these artificial, as you describe them, and as I described them, certainly fabricated, whether they're natural or artificial or otherwise, conduits, which one does have through this chakra type system, which is most often described by people. There is a literal and obvious, in my estimation, 3 points that can be accessed, but I don't really describe that in depth in public for certain. And don't wish to have any of that information misunderstood, misread, or misused by anyone. So, but I do acknowledge that you're absolutely correct from my observations anyway, and I'm sure others would agree as well. So as we go into the next hour, guys, Tony Sayers is with us, and we're definitely having a conversation we don't often have on this show. But I promise you, I'm going to shut up and really let Tony dig into this stuff. And of course, enter your questions in the live chat room at Ochelli.com or into my Skype. It doesn't matter either way. I'll ask anything reasonable that you guys want Tony to answer during the next hour. Stay tuned to the Ochelli Effect. We'll be right back.
There are too many puppets in the mainstream and alternative media. Don't let nobody sell you poisons or lies. Get real honest info. Listen to the Ochelli Effect 5 days a week. And if you want more of the alternative, visit Ochelli.com and think for yourself.
Get ready for the Ochelli Effect.
WallStreetWindow.com. Gold, silver, the stock market. WallStreetWindow.com. The brilliant author of The War State brings you exclusive reports about the big changes upcoming in the markets. WallStreetWindow.com. Perhaps you're invested deeply. Perhaps you're not in deep enough. Maybe you're thinking about getting started. WallStreetWindow.com. Michael Swanson, the brilliant author of The War State, understood these trends professionally for many years, and now he gives you the benefit of his knowledge. WallStreetWindow.com. Go there now. Go there now. Go there now.
Okay, can we get quiet, please? Everybody sit down. Young man in the front row, spit that gum out. Thank you. Cherry flavored. And now the moment we've been waiting for. The man whom we all know and have grown to love over the years. Who won the Nobel Peace Prize for making the largest flavored Jell-O shooter that the world has ever seen. And a great man of science who proved to us once and for all that no matter how much cherry flavored Jell-O you put in your swimming pool, you still can't walk on water. I give to you, Chuck Ochelli!
Second hour of the Ochelli Effect beginning now here at Ochelli.com and the other networks which do carry us. We do appreciate you for tuning in. Our guest tonight is Tony Sayers, and we are certainly having an unconventional discussion. Unconventional in that I do not often do spiritually focused shows, but when I do, I try and do something of value as always. And, you know what? Mr. Sayers is not the typical guy out there that you can run into on YouTube and fall asleep drooling listening to, giving you the same rhetoric over and over again, which I'm thoroughly dispossessed of at this point. Also, quick note, you can enter questions or comments, which I may read, provided that they are relatively short. That is into the chat room at Ochelli.com, or if you're on my Skype list, those are the only two things I am watching during the show. And also I have Tony helping me because, as you guys know, my eyesight not the best. But anyways, I do see that Sunshine is in the chat room, and she has a very long comment. If you were to cut that down into a sentence or so, or a question, which was a bit pithy, I would be more than happy to ask it or enter it into the conversation, but I'm not going to read whole paragraphs. Just that little piece of advice for you guys who want your question voiced. All right. So, Mr. Sayers, sorry about all that housekeeping there. I do want to continue with this conversation, though, because, again, you've struck upon some really interesting points that I don't hear many people making. You've also been quite willing to admit during the first hour of conversation many times that you did not remain married to certain ideas when you discovered them, because after a little bit and after trial and error and personal experience, well, gee, you were in the process of doing something quite scary to a lot of people, which is learning. And it is one of those things that is a continuous process. We've all heard, you know, living is learning, or living is the process of learning something new all the time, or whatever. It's not necessarily always about something new, folks, but it is often about modifying what it is you might have found to be useful at one point, because a more useful line of thought, set of facts, or realities might have been presented to you, or you may have discovered through your own works, one way or another, that would tend to make you alter your conclusions. And that is the literal experience of going through life and not being closed-minded. Okay, and I appreciate that at all times. And again, very eloquent and extremely articulate so far in this discussion with Mr. Sayers, despite my rambling on occasion. Okay, so where did we leave off? We had a couple of questions. Do you remember them, or should I read them again, Tony?
Yes. So I remember the third question. How do you it's not necessarily the safest way to do it, because AI are involved. What they have is basically if someone manages to get out the chakras, there is AI attached that will alert AI and potentially pulsate and put the body system out. So there's kind of like booby traps to it that we're finding. So
almost like the sentinels that one observed, say, during the Matrix movie, when they tried to unplug you from the pod, there was a reaction from the system to put a stop to it. I know that's an overused allegorical mechanism there of the Matrix movies, but kind of makes it really clear if you think about that illustration, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I want to make clear is that chakras is like 0.1% of the whole body of work. Basically, we're talking about other overlays. They've overlaid our nutritional intake by 50%, so we're only getting 50% nutrition. They've overlaid our astrological signs, so we're very heavily influenced by our planets. And I don't know about you, I don't want to be ruled over anything, even if it's my planet. We're heavily influenced by things like full moons, Mercury retrograde. They've overlaid our ability to meet people that we really vibe with, like our soul tribe, our soul mates. Because of course, if we link up with people that are on the same path, then we're a lot harder to deal with. We're talking about other activations that are being hidden from us, that are lying dormant: diamond body, multi-dimensional bodies. We're talking about reactivating the Earth's energy, linking up with the Earth's energy grid, which is the crystalline core energy. So basically, what we do is we do the whole process in a safe way, in terms of removing the nanotech, removing the AI. So this is done safely. So you can go on YouTube and find out how to remove your chakras. But like I said before, there are a whole host of other booby traps that you need to make sure are done properly as well, to enable this to work properly, basically.
Well, for instance, right, you would think that there's a physical, literal, dietary sort of detox methodology that could be used here in preparation, right? Because you'd want to cleanse yourself of the AI elements. I mean, it's almost inescapable because of the chemtrails and things. But maybe if you had a diet of more simple and natural foods at that time, and weren't drinking the water that was being produced by the local facilities that are supposed to cleanse it, because sometimes AI bits and pieces could be introduced into that. Stuff like that. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And also there is a solution to the chemtrails. Basically, what you need to do is buy a crystal called selenite. It's a clear crystal. You put that in a glass of water overnight, and you drink that for 30 days. Now, what that does is that crystal dissolves slowly over time. There's a lot of disinfo about it. It's not safe and blah, blah, blah. Well, like anything that's potentially good for us, they try and put a stop to. But if you drink that water for 30 days in the morning, what that does is it crystallizes your body and it stops the nanotech coming through into you. So that is a solution that we found. If you are still wary of drinking the crystal water, you can buy COQ10 tablets, which do the same thing, but you have to take them every single day. Okay, so the selenite water is good, and it's only for 30 days, but some people, they still might be a bit wary, so you can do the COQ10 tablets as well, and that will shield you from stuff coming through the chemtrails and all the other nano stuff come in.
Well, right. Now, here's something that I would actually point to specifically, and I wonder what your viewpoint is on it. But collecting rainwater during electrical storms has been extremely useful for me for cleansing. Now, I know that may sound like...
Isn't that illegal where you are?
Yes, but so are many things, and it's not the most heinous violation of the law if you get caught, but it is technically illegal, sure. But I'll tell you, collecting a bit of rainwater in advance of a process where you wish to cleanse yourself, when there is an electrical storm happening overhead, I don't know the specific reason for it, but it has proven useful to me personally in the past. Anyway, I just point that observation out there for people on a personal level, and you can explore it as you like. But anyway, go right on ahead.
Yeah, I just want to elaborate on something as well. I mean, you guys over in the States, I'm assuming a lot of your listeners are over there. The amount of GM, I mean, I feel so sorry for you guys that you've got GM everywhere. And it's very difficult for you to find, good quality food. But the importance of it is it's so essential, because what's happening is there is an attack on the gut lining. So we have two brains. We have the brain in our head, and we have the belly brain. And the belly brain is where all your knowing, your wisdom, your intuition, it all comes from your belly brain. Now, they don't want people in that area of the body. They want them in the head brain, which is all about logic and reason, there's no wisdom there. So the GM food and the chemicals in the chemtrails and the water are specifically targeting the gut lining. That's why there's so much leaky gut. And it's destroying, basically 70% of our serotonin is stored in the belly brain as well, which is the feel-good chemical. So not only are they going for the belly brain as they know the wisdom that's there, but they're going for it because our feel-good chemical is there as well. So again, I would advise your listeners to do some kind of gut health. So whether that's fermented food, kombucha drink, or taking a good probiotic on a daily basis. I work on a lot of people in America with weak gut linings, and it's not their fault. It's just the options in North America are very few to be able to keep that nice and strong. But it really is essential that people are aware of that and try to shield themselves.
No, absolutely, I agree with you, and you're 100% correct. That quite honestly, most of the options that are presented to us for food, sometimes not even really food. But anyway, even when it is food, are not conducive to good gut health of any kind, and this destroys our immune systems, our abilities to fight disease, but also, as you stated, a lot of other chemical dependent areas of the body are literally being, hamstrung by the fact that we have so many gut issues here in the States. So you're absolutely correct. We do have listeners in the UK as well, by the way, just so you know. Oh, cool. But we even have a couple in Vietnam. So just letting you know.
Well, that's not too far from me at the moment. I'm in Thailand, so.
There you go. All over the place there are listeners, but most of them in North America, and you're dead on target there by reminding people about their gut health. Now, let's see. That leaves us with the last two questions. Well, actually, one question that just came in, and one that we left off with at the end of the last hour, which is it possible to put a no trespassing sign up in an ethereal sense? That's one. And the other is, does the guest think that there is a grid above us in the sky? Okay, not precisely sure what the meaning of that is, but anyway, I will leave you to answer both of those. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So, so the first question, sorry, what was that again? My memory's like a goldfish.
Sorry, the no trespassing. Is there a way, basically?
Oh, right, yeah, no trespassing. Yeah, I mean, I would say if they're talking about going to sleep at night, whereby perhaps they're going, because when we sleep, we often go astral traveling. I would say that is a good practice, but I would say to shield yourself completely is better to stay in your subconscious. Set the intention. Stay just. I would say that would be more. I personally, that resonates more with me, and I would feel more protected just not to go out there at all, rather than set some kind of barrier. Although that probably would do some good. But yeah, for me, I'm staying out of that as much as I possibly can. And to answer the second question, right? So what we're finding is, now I'm not sure exactly if you could call it a grid as such. I mean, we're in quarantine here. This planet is sealed off by what's going on. And what is happening is we are involved. Humanity is involved in a soul mill. Basically, what is happening, and I go back to deceivers, the deception is we are, and this is working through Saturn. I mean, it's pretty left field, but they are recycling souls onto this planet to be used as batteries. That is what we keep reincarnating here, lifetime after lifetime. What is happening is when a person dies, they're shown the white light, which is false, and these beings will masquerade as whatever that person really maybe worshipped or loved in that lifetime. So maybe we're talking about Jesus or Buddha or maybe a family member. So they will masquerade and they will entice people into the white light. And then sit down with you in some kind of room and say, well, you know, Chuck, you lived a good life. You know, you did this and that, but you hurt this person. So what we can do is we can give you another opportunity to go back down. And most humans, you probably wouldn't, Chuck, just because you think for yourself, but most humans, you know, because they think with their emotions and they play on our empathy and, you know, they have this idea of, you know, we go to hell if we've not been a good person. They will take up that option. So they will go, okay, and they will agree. So they will consent to another lifetime down here on planet crazy, planet pedophile, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, they end up just coming back down here for another round. They're locked in on the chakras, so they're being fed there. They're being fed through AI. AI's infiltrating them, so we're going round and round and round on this soul mill, and this has been going on for eons. And so whether or not you could call it a grid, I don't know. I do understand that the Earth is in quarantine from the rest of the universe right now because of the amount of insanity that's going on here.
Well,
and whatever we do here.
Yeah, I want to offer something into this discussion because I feel as though there's a phrase that another guest of mine uses who I don't necessarily agree with everything he has to say, but I agree with this, that there is a cosmic censorship which is certainly in place over the thought process of our species. And what that censorship has allowed to happen here, because I don't believe for a second that I'm a fresh soul. I appreciate the compliment that I might not be fool enough to return, but I bet you I have already, and probably would again if I were so convinced that this were the real situation. We all have regrets in our lives. We all have regrets that reach into a very deep part of us sometimes, that we wish we could have done something better or whatever. And if somebody presented you with that opportunity and you thought it was legitimate, you may very well fall victim to that. Not because you're a bad person, not because you're stupid or because you're unaware, but because that's a legitimate, part of being a human being, wanting to get something right that you once did wrong. But I do believe that the reason why this is happening, all this, the sawmill, as you call it, which I think is a great description, I think that's happening because we have been literally governed by a set of cosmic censorship. The idea that we need to be greeted by someone on the other side is, part of that censorship to begin with. Why is it that we're going to run into this particular figure, which in most cases we can almost prove that the majority of these alleged icons are fabricated, but also why is it that we would be greeted by someone else who is going through this process? It's a logical fallacy, because wouldn't they have had to go through the process, and wouldn't they be somewhere else by now? I don't know, but the thing is, I do believe that there is a censorship which limits people's intellectual acumen on this planet, literally is meant to keep us, stuck in the cycle of wanting to return to what I think is quite accurately described as the insane asylum Earth. And that is true. Yeah, planet pedophile, planet whatever, pedophile. I don't know. I probably don't pronounce it correctly. But thing is, whatever it is, we have a great deal of terrible things here. And why would anybody want to return? It is insanity, literally the definition of it, right? Banging your head up against a wall, doing the very same negative thing that, accrued you negative results in the past, and expecting something new to happen. I get it. And that all makes perfect sense. But what do you think about this concept of an a literal systematic, convention of censorship over the spiritual and psychological aspects of the creature we call men and women on this planet?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is part of the problem, isn't it? It's like, how can you change something if you're unaware of it? And they've done very well up till now to keep things hidden in the darkness. And I guess the difference now is that we have the internet. I mean, the censorship on it is rife. It's getting worse by the day. So how long we're going to have that so-called freedom, I don't know. But it has, for however long we've had it, 25 years or something, it has opened the gates of knowledge to humanity for the first time in a long time. Because when you think about it, people in ancient times, they used to have to go and read books and really put themselves at risk to find occulted knowledge, occulted meaning hidden. Whereas now, you and I, we can do a podcast and it can reach thousands of people within a few hours. So the control over what's been hidden has let slide. I mean, I think the internet was their biggest mistake. And they're trying to backpedal now, but I think that when we were given the internet, that was a game changer, and I think ultimately that will be their demise. And I know it's censored, but I think in a lot of ways the rabbit's already out, and we as researchers, truthers, whatever you want to call it, we've just got to drive this home now. And they're scared. They are scared, not only in this dimension, but in the fourth dimension as well, because humanity has never been as awake as it is right now. And the information that is coming through put out is what I believe. And they're making mistakes all over the place, which is getting other people to look up from the TV and thinking, well, what is going on here? We're having a false flag every week now. They're being debunked very easily. And people are really just, for the first time, starting to question things and open their minds. So in one way, it seems to be getting worse. But on another level, I think that they are running scared. We are the source of food for them. And if we do raise our consciousness, then it's game over for them. And a lot of what I've talked about is quite negative. It's just what it is. But when you flip it, when you look at what the amount of beings, entities, humans that are siphoning our energy, just how powerful does that make us? You know, human beings used to be genius. You know, we used to, in our true form, we used to be we used to be the envy of the universe, and we need to remember that. We need to remember who we truly are, because we're not what we are. We're not this devolved golem kind of creatures. I mean, some people are devolving right now. That's without question. But the people that have opened their mind, they're starting to show discernment. These are the people that are stepping into what we can truly be. And that's exciting. And, you know, whatever I've talked about here, the underlying reason for it all is because we are so goddamn powerful. And they know it. And that's, you know, we're batteries, right? But we're powerful batteries. And when we take that power back for ourselves, it's game over for them. And, you know, that excites me.
Well, you know what? It excites me too, and it is one of those things. I'm not sure it was so much of a mistake. I think that the internet, like any other tool, is double-edged. I mean, you know, we could talk about the positive edge right now and tell you that there's people in Colombia, the UK. This is what I can observe off of my website, by the way, right now. There's people in Colombia, literally the country, the UK. There's people in Asia and a couple of different spots in Vietnam, etc. And let's see, where else? We had somebody from various people in the United States, of course. We had somebody from what I call the Oceania area out there, which I think is New Zealand, who was on the site just a few minutes ago. There's various people that are coming and listening to what it is we're talking about right now. And meanwhile, you're in Thailand and I am in the deep south of America in Georgia. So, you know, the connectivity aspect of it is certainly positive. On the other hand, it is also rife with a bunch of disinformation and nonsense and even more distraction for all of your distraction needs out there, far beyond the idiot box that you used to keep on a table. You can find a million things to keep you busy with that which is not important as well. So, I mean, you know, it's multifaceted. I do think that they never believed for a moment that we would take this toy, because I guarantee you there's much better technology than this. But,
God, yeah.
You know, but I do believe they never believed we would take this toy and actually use it for good. You know what I'm saying? The toy version of it. But I am encouraged by the fact that people that are in search of knowledge are in search of, I hate to use the word truth, but let's use it. People that are in search of truth actually have a place to go. They may require a bit of work and a bit of, oh my God, here's that word again, Tony, discernment to actually acquire some. But it is possible. So I kind of have a dual mindset about it. It is just as positive as it can be negative, and I just you know, sort of wish upon wishing that it goes more in the positive direction as time goes on, and that the censorship doesn't get the better of it as we move forward. So really great having you answer those questions. Now, I want to kind of throw this stuff open to you now. And let you go in any direction you wish, because there's a million things we could talk about, but we've only got a limited amount of time tonight. I already know that I'm going to want to have you back on to discuss some specific issues, but this is sort of an introduction between you and me for the listener to get an idea of how it is you and I would converse, and to go over some very key issues in my mind. Anyway, and I'm sure that a great many more intelligent and evolved individuals have spoken to you than myself. But I promise you this is a little different than what you'll get from any other interview that Tony has done. And definitely want people to check out your work. Once again, if you could give them the website, and also find him on YouTube if that's where you decide to go fishing. Find him on YouTube as well. Interesting discussions that I've been able to watch there. But what is the website they should go to start with?
Yeah, so it's www.transcendingtimes.org, and I can be contacted there at tony@transcendingtimes.org. I'm also on Facebook and YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel as well. Just type in Tony Sayers, and we're still, this information is still coming through right now. So a lot of, like I said to you, is a very small part, but it's the one that kind of triggers the interest. But a lot of it is something that's going on. It's so multifaceted, what we're finding. So transcendingtimes.org is always being updated with new interviews and vlogs and me yabbering on basically.
Well, I love it because it's the continuing inquiry, via the always a work in progress sort of thesis is what I'm hearing from you. And I appreciate that. Again, I want to state, that when people tell you they have the absolute answers to everything and they tell you that they know, how everything seems to work. First of all, run. Second, understand that you're talking to someone who is either too ignorant to understand that they are a liar or quite content with the idea that they're lying to you. Because I have never encountered anyone who knows the answers about everything in even the smallest of fields. I've met some people that are fairly knowledgeable, even on the narrow aspects of anything. And that could include a science, a language, a religion, a study. And what you're tackling, Tony, is, again, so multifaceted that, it seems to me as though it would take many, many lifetimes to be able to say, look, I have all the answers, here they are. And, I know you're not 300, 400, 500 years old, so I'm assuming that this is still a work in progress. It doesn't mean that we may not get to a point where somebody like Tony or even you out there listening could get to a place where, hey, look, you know what? I've got a good handle on a lot of this. And, as we share knowledge and we pass it along, this prospect becomes even more likely. So that is the purpose of what it is I'm doing here tonight with Tony Sayers. So go ahead, Tony. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I think, what I do is just put out what I have learnt myself. And, how do we discern truth? Well, for me, does it feel right? Does it resonate? And actually, the work of Mark Passio is good on this. He does work based on the trivium. Have you heard of the trivium?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the trivium, which is an actual process of how we discern truth, and that's really interesting. And it's if you've not looked into that, I recommend that people look into that, because I think
it also teaches you a great. I'm sorry. It also teaches you a great deal about the way in which people communicate with you and you communicate with others. It gives you an idea of exactly what that process is like, what it, the meaning of what you're saying, and what you're saying may not necessarily be the same thing. And, there's a lot of ways to go with the trivium as well, but it's something absolutely worthy of study, especially if you care about the way that you are communicating to and with people and the way that they communicate with you. I think that's one of those really relevant areas of study, along with the concept that some people describe as slave speak. I think if you put these two things together, you all of a sudden have a whole new world related to the linguistic part of the puzzle here. If you study these two things together, what do you say to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think studying those two things together is going to give you a good basis to be able to discern truth. But we've mentioned that word so many times in this interview, and I think that's great, because it needs to be mentioned more: discernment, and sovereignty. And just going back to the soul meal thing, because often when I talk about that, it's like, well, what do you do at this at this point where, you know, you're faced with this white light. Max Spears, actually, who was murdered, he actually spoke about this as well, and Cameron Day talks about it also. And again, it's you declare your sovereignty. You just say, no, I'm a sovereign being. And he actually talks about going back into your heart space. So it's completely rejecting that. If you so discern, maybe you want to go back into the white light, but that's what the idea is when you reach that point.
Yeah, I had a guest on that used to talk about going into heart space instead of head space all the time, and you know, it's an interesting concept and it's worthy of examination, but you know, to declare that there is a singular one-size-fits-all answer to any of these questions, in my estimation, is you know, loaded with hubris and really not something that's productive. So you know, but that's just my opinion. Again, is that we all need our own customizable answers to these things. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah, you've got to discern for yourself when you get there.
That's it. Sure. Absolutely. A comment from the chat room, which I'm just going to throw at you, and again, I'm going to actually follow through with my promise to shut up, is that there is this idea, and I'm going to paraphrase it. It seems as though, you know, all of us do have a great many unique gifts from our experiences and possibly even, you know, from our creation, you know, the time of our creation. Maybe these things were sort of factory installed, as I like to put it sometimes. You know, it really is relevant to understand that if we could all come together and unify and, you know, work together collectively, that this would be, you know, an extremely powerful and productive thing that could happen. But it seems as though that is not part of the design of the controllers. And, you know, quite honestly, unity in and of itself is, well, not always productive. But anyway, I throw those two concepts at you just to kind of toss them into the conversation and leave it at that. I will be quiet now.
No, it's okay, Chuck. It's nice bouncing things off you, so you're not interrupting me or anything. But yeah, I mean, it's all divide and rule, isn't it? Divide and conquer, and well, we know what they do with the fault lines on a 3D level. It's all about, you know, different religions, different races, different sexuality, and obviously the biggest is between men and women themselves, and yeah, and even in the truth movement, you know, it's like trying to. I'm a realist. I don't ever see that we're all going to be on the same page on things. I really just don't see that. I prefer, or I guess not prefer. I would understand that it's going to take like a 100th monkey, I guess, where you get enough people kind of on the same page that then you can start motoring forward. And I think that page has to be based around sovereignty and discernment. And I think if we can get enough people around that, then we'll be discerning truth better and coming to understanding, because I think we can come to understanding on things. Truth can be known, and we can get it right. And then I think if enough of us do that, then the sovereignty will come as a byproduct. So are we all going to be unified and holding hands and, you know, la la land on this planet? I don't know. I just can't. When you look around and you see all the different religions, I mean, you know, last night I went to the cinema here in Thailand, and you have to stand up before the film for the national anthem for the king. And, you know, you've got all these people standing up in the cinema, like, and I'm just like, oh my God. And you see how mind controlled people are. It's going to take God knows how many thousands of years to get everyone on the same page. But I think that if we get enough people, on a similar kind of page, then I think that's going to have an impact on consciousness. And I think there'll be way showers that kind of cajole the rest of humanity in the right direction. That's kind of how I see it. I'm not one of these people. I'm not one of these. It would be lovely if we could all unite and come together. It really would, but I just don't know. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that could ever happen?
Well, you know what? I'm going to enter two questions into the conversation that have come to me, because one of them speaks exactly to what you're saying and what you just asked me. How is it that, here's question one, how is it that either one of you proposes to fight this giant machine which is coming at us from these, in quotes, multifacets that you're describing, if we are not unified? That's question one. Question two is from another listener, which, let's see, can the guest define the difference between finding the heart space, in quotes, and, quote, heart chakra? I'm going to leave the chakra question to you, and I'm going to answer the other one. Okay.
Great.
The answer to the other one is as follows, and it speaks exactly to what you just asked me anyway, Tony. Very simple. I tend, for some reason in my nature, to think of things in a militaristic fashion. And I will say this. An effective army only has to march in the same direction. We do not have to lock arms in order to be effective. And here's the thing. If we can simply face in the same general direction, know who the enemy is, know exactly what it is that we are confronting, and all agree to work cooperatively together to deal with it, we become a larger force that can accomplish a great many heroic deeds. That is my poetic way of putting that. Now, as to the other question, I would appreciate a clarity on this subject. If you could define the difference between finding the heart space and heart chakra, which Mydron, who's asked a few of the questions that I posited here tonight, also enters into the conversation. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully the person that asked that, maybe they would consider removing that artificial chakra, so there would be no confusion at the point of death. But obviously, if the information didn't resonate and they still want the chakras, then it's a difficult question, really. I mean, I think it's possible that you could still have that sovereignty mindset and declare your sovereignty and go within that space. That space, I believe, to be different to the artificial chakra. So I think at that point, I mean, I don't really know until it happens. This is just what I understand. But I don't think if you were to declare your sovereignty and then go into yourself, that I don't think you would end up going through your chakra, because your chakra is just a plug for this third dimensional reality. So at that point, you would be out of the third dimension.
Well, there you go. And for me, it seems to me as though the heart chakra, if you will, is more like cutting a window into a house. All right. Actually going inside the house is going into that space. Now, this is not an invalid idea to go into heart space by any means, but I don't think it is the end all and be all of all answers at all times, as some people have attempted to posit to me in the past, to be honest with you. But it's not the solution. Like, well, hang on, Tony, because here's the last thing, the very last thing I want to throw in, and then I swear that's it, because we've only got about 15 minutes left after that. But a lot of people tell me about how, look, if I make my own reality, that's all that matters. And by making my own reality, that's all that actually exists anyway. And to me, this is a very childish view on the world. It does not answer a great many of the other things that you wish to connect yourself to. And I think it is hey, look, if I decide that the rest of the world doesn't exist, I guess it doesn't matter what happens in the rest of the world. I cannot embrace that attitude. I never could, and I never will. But maybe it's just my refusal to comply. I'm not sure. What do you think of that concept, though?
That's solipsism, isn't it? Where a person believes that their existence is the only existence, and their truth is the only truth. I believe that's one of the satanic sins. Yeah, I mean, how arrogant to think that you were created for the world rather than the world was created for you. Yeah, I mean, it's just more of the same, isn't it? It's just another cul-de-sac that's put out there. And you hear that a lot within New Age circles. It's just another cul-de-sac to keep people away from, I guess, taking any responsibility. Because you can make the truth anything. If the truth is what you make it, then you can say, well, I don't want to acknowledge that there's these paedophiles, so my truth is that they don't exist, or so that then abstains you from anything, taking any, and it's just truth is objective. It just is. It's unwavering. It's like a line that just goes straight, and it doesn't depend from person to person. That line doesn't change for what I want truth to be to what you want truth to be. It doesn't spike and go down. It just is constant, and it's a very dangerous mindset. It's a good point because, like I say, in the new cage, you hear that one a lot. Your truth is the only truth. Don't worry about anyone else's truth.
Yeah, right.
You just sit there in lotus position, and everything will be fine. Everything will change.
Right, and I love the fact that you just said that, the truth is an objective thing, because it is not relevant the fact that you are unaware of the realities behind the truth. It still is what it is, okay? It doesn't matter your level of ignorance or your level of desire to not have it be. There simply is and there is not. That is the bottom line. Now, you may not be fully aware of everything. I don't believe anyone on this planet is actually fully aware of everything. But no. It doesn't mean that the things that you're unaware of simply don't exist. If a tree falls in the woods, does anybody hear it, or does it make a noise? Well, maybe nobody heard it, but it happened, So, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm kind of cynical, but I get really turned off by anybody who starts in with that whole, well, this is the truth the way I see it, so it doesn't matter what's actually elsewhere. It's like, my God, really, you've gotten to this point of you believe you're enlightened and you're evolved, but basically you've said to the rest of the world is, I'm not listening to you. I'm not looking at you like a child. This is not productive. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it is exactly as you described. It's childlike. It's avoiding. It's people that just don't want to deal with any negative. It's like you get accused of being negative. Well, as you said, truth just is. Truth doesn't. It doesn't change just because you want things to be different. It doesn't change to positive just because you want it to be positive. I mean, we'd all love to be in positivity all the time. I mean, love and light and all that stuff. Yeah, great. But let's sort this crap out first so we can get to love and light. At the moment, we have a problem. We have a problem that's not being dealt with, and it is a negative problem. There are some positive solutions. There are positive ways that we could shield ourselves. And there are positive things going on whereby I believe that they are panicking and they are worried about what's going on. But yeah, it is what it is. It's not very nice, and that's, as you know, that's why a lot of people don't even look down these rabbit holes, because they take one little look and they think, no, that's too scary, that's too negative. I'll just go over here and I will go and do a gong bath and everything will be fine.
Right. Listen, we are down to the last 10 minutes of the show. So at this point, I usually ask my guests, what is it that you would like people to take away from tonight's discussion, things like that? I guess there's a lot of directions we could go in, considering the ground that you and I just very briefly touched upon in many areas. In fact, this is a multi-dimensional discussion. It's not two dimensions by any means. But, if you could sort of give a synopsis to people, what it is that you think would be best for them to take away from the interaction, the questions, and some of the things that, I probably did cut you off on, by all means, I give you the last few minutes to express that. Mr. Sayers, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. You haven't cut me off. It's okay. I guess I would encourage people to research this. It is important. I'm not telling people to believe what I'm saying. I'm just telling them to look at what I'm saying. I could sum it up basically in three ways. What I would like to leave people with is you're sovereign. You're a sovereign being. No one has the right to rule over you. Have that mindset. That, in my mind, is someone who is really awakened, not just what is going on themselves. Half of this is about us. It's about waking up to ourselves, and that it's an inside job. And it's all very well. But whilst we still have a slave mentality, we still want rulers. We're still looking at gurus. You've got to be your own guru. You've got to be your own savior. So sovereignty is what I would really like people to leave with. And also, we've mentioned it so many times, and I think it's so good that we have discernment, especially within New Age arenas. Do not think with your emotions. Think, get a feel for it. Think with the belly brain. Is this person, does it sound true? What's the feeling of this person? How do I feel about this person? Discern. Because like you said earlier, although there's some good info coming out, there's a hell of a lot of disinfo being mixed up with the truth as well. So discernment is another thing that I would suggest to your listeners. I'm sure they're all very discerning anyway. And just power, that's what we are at our core. I think it's time to get out of that little me mindset. That little me, what can I do? I'm just Joe Blogs. I have no power. This system's too big. By just one person doing what they're dealing with their inner stuff, walking their own path and trying to live in line with that objective truth that we were talking about earlier, that has a huge ripple effect. And we're all ripples in the pond. We're all the pebbles. We're pebbles being thrown into a pond, but the ripples are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And, no matter what your situation, you are at your core very, very powerful, and that's why they've come after us so much. That's why they've tried to drain us so much and put this assault course, which is basically what it is, in front of us. And we can get through it. And realizing this information, realizing how much they've manipulated us through things like chakras and overlays and plugged our innate abilities, and then you and we need to remember that to lean on that conscious as well. Just something that I haven't mentioned quickly is that inner child work. Basically, your inner child is your higher self. And what happens is when we're born onto this planet, it's traumatic enough, what with school and unconscious parenting. So the mind of the child fractures into protector characters. Now, as we grow older, our ego identifies with these characters that aren't really us. So we become a mishmash of all these different aspects that aren't really ourselves. Now, they can actually get in and attack us on these different fractured parts. So it's very important that we do the healing around that. Because once we heal that, we heal our higher selves, and that inner child kind of, metaphorically speaking, grows up. And also what we do with parts of ourselves, we attract circumstances which relate to the unhealed parts of ourselves, and we keep repeating them over again until we heal those. So part of what I'm learning is to do the work on that as well. And that's what most people don't want to do. They don't want to do the emotional work, especially men, but to heal properly, we have to heal our psyches and that aspect of ourselves that we all have that is been crying out for attention all our adult lives. And I tell you, once you do that, and I'm not there yet, I've been working on it for 6 months, you'll be less triggered. Things won't bother you as much because once you're strong inside, not a lot on the outside can hurt you. And I would just encourage your listeners to have a look at my work, but also consider, looking at doing the work on that as well.
Well, all of what you just said is extremely sound advice. I appreciate it. And now I'm going to address a question which was sent in to me early on in the show because they thought for some reason that what I was discussing with you did not quite line up with a sentiment which I often give toward the ends of my shows. And here, I'll present it a little early and let Mr. Sayers object to it if he wishes to, but I doubt he will. Simply because I don't believe for a moment that one person's intentions will entirely change the world instantaneously does not mean that I do not encourage people to at all times consider their actions and to put forth positive things to allow it to ripple into existence, to allow it to influence, those small random acts of kindness that I used to talk about a lot more than I have lately. Quite honestly, I still find that to be a valid way of conducting yourself and making a positive, effective change on your immediate surroundings and allowing it to resonate in that way. You never know how far it may go. I do agree with that still, and still say that this is a worthy expenditure of energy at all times. A bit of kindness, a kind word, the acknowledgement of your fellow man or woman as you go throughout your day could be the positive effect that you needed to contribute in order to literally change the world at some point in time, or at least to be the beginning of what could change the world. You never know. And you know what? I would rather make that error on the side of doing something that is more accurately described as a random act of kindness than contributing to the negativity. So what do you think of that, Mr. Sayers? And that'll probably be your final word for us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely agree. What you put out there, you get back. It doesn't always come back straight away, granted, but we're all in this together. And just being here in Thailand, there's a lot of poor people and stuff, and you just try and do your best. And random acts of kindness. God, if everyone did one a day, then the world would probably change on a dime, or we'd be a lot more closer to each other. There'd be a lot less division. So I think that's a really positive idea. I try and live by that myself. And it's a lovely way to end the show, I guess. Totally down with that. Be the change that you want to see in the world, and random acts of kindness are always good.
Right. And at every moment, there is another opportunity to make a decision which could change the trajectory of the rest of your life or someone else's. So these are all my reasons why I support that concept, that idea. And yes, indeed, I still do. Even though I am skeptical of some other people that might sound like they're supporting that idea, I've got to tell you that seems like Tony agrees with me, and I'm extremely grateful, by the way, sir, that you spent all this time and indulged me with this discussion and the audience. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Anyway, the Ochelli Effect is done for the week. Again, special guest Tony Sayers tonight. That was really, really enlightening. We'll have Jim Lee on Monday. We're going to get a little bit of a different education. And, Tuesday will be the last live show before I go to Dallas for the JFK Lancer Conference. And JP Satili and Mike Swanson will be with us for that one. So I'll see you guys next week, no matter who you are, where you are. I hope you're doing well. Good night.